Hello everyone, welcome to my how-to video on Diablo 3. This is going to be a basic overview of Diablo 3 and action RPGs in general. Action RPGs are gear-based games, pretty much based off of the original Diablo. You usually control a single character that has stats, skills, etc., and you collect better and better gear, get stronger and stronger, kill more and more enemies, things like that. Diablo 3 is the third game in the Diablo series, obviously. And there's a few things that you should know when you first start out. First of all, when you load up the game, you're going to want to go to the menu, Options, Gameplay, Elective Mode. You want to toggle this on as the very first thing you ever do in the entire game. This makes the game actually playable. I don't know what they were thinking when they made elective mode not the default, because the game is pretty much unplayable if it's not on. There's a few other options here, it doesn't really matter so much. Advanced tooltips I like, because I like to have information. Turning these on or off, these are all preference. I used to play with damage numbers off because I liked less screen clutter, but it's nice to know what you're doing. This is a more advanced option, so later in the game, depending on how it feels to you, you can turn on or off. Next, we're going to go look at creating a new character. If you have a character, you would go to Switch Hero, and then you can go down to Create down here. Now here's our 5 classes: Barbarian, Demon Hunter, Monk, Witch Doctor, Wizard. Every class is allowed to have a race of... every class can be the sex of male or female. You can also make him hardcore or not. You have to level a character to 10 before you're allowed to make a hardcore character. Each class has a different resource mechanic. Barbarians use Fury. Demon Hunters use a dual resource, Hatred and Discipline. Monks use Spirit. Witch Doctors use Mana, the classic resource. And Wizards use Arcane Power. Firstly, we're going to look at the Barbarian. Barbarians are very aggressive, offensive-based class. Fury is a resource that starts out empty. When you use Fury Builders, you gain it. When you use Fury Spenders, you use it. There is kind of a flaw at the moment in the fact that most of the high-end Barbarian builds don't actually even spend Fury, because the Fury Spenders aren't terribly well balanced to do what they're supposed to do. Hopefully they address that soon so that Fury Spenders actually are wanted. We'll see how that goes in the long run. Demon Hunters use one of the most interesting resources in the game. They have Hatred and Discipline. Hatred is similar to Wizard's Arcane Power and Witch Doctor's Mana in that it regenerates at a fairly rapid pace, and it's also similar to Fury in that it has attacks that will generate it. That's kind of a running theme with all classes. They have a generator of some kind for their primary resource, so you always have an attack to use. And that you also spend it to use your damaging attack, so you can spend it fairly rapidly and gain it back at a decent clip with certain abilities. Discipline is a more defensive resource that you would use for survivability cooldowns and stuff like that. Hatred is 125, whereas Fury is 100, by the way. And Discipline is 30. The rate at which Discipline comes back is considerably less than Hatred, so it might be only 30, but you're going to get a lot less back over the course of a fight. So a basic attack for Hatred would use, say, 10, 25. Some of the expensive ones use like 40, 60, or 80 Hatred, so it can use a large chunk at a time. But some of the more spammable attacks only use like 10 or 15 or 20. Whereas Discipline being 30, you have like your basic Vault or Caltrops you can drop. Vault uses, I believe, 8. I think Caltrops is 6 base. So it uses a larger percentage than a lot of the more spammable Hatred attacks. but because of the slower regeneration rate, you're only going to be able to use so many during a fight before you kind of run out of defensive resources. The monk is similar to the barbarian in their resource of spirit. It's generated through generators, whereas fury comes relatively quickly and is spent relatively quickly if you're actually using spenders. Spirit is a little slower in coming. You can stockpile it more. Spirit can go up to 200 base, and there's a passive that gives you up to 300. One of the balancing factors for monks is that their generators are a little bit more powerful and their spenders are a little bit less powerful than, say, a barbarian, simply because Spirit's a little bit slower in coming, so they want all the attacks to be more average, I would assume, is what their design goal was. How all of this actually works in-game at the end game usually doesn't work out so well compared to what theory is, so I'm not too well versed on level 60 Inferno monks. As far as I know, they're one of the weakest classes at the moment, so melee is just really impaired at the moment in this game. The 1.3 just came out, 1.0.3 actually, and it made Inferno a little bit less perilous for melee, but it's still a little bit easier for ranged since there's so much damage output. The Witch Doctor uses mana, which is the classic resource. It's using the standardized World of Warcraft model now, where you get like a set amount of mana and each ability uses a percentage of. So instead of using like 100 and your ability uses 20, you're looking at like 400 or 500 and ability uses like 80 or 70 or 29 or 92 or whatever, something like that. But the rate at which mana comes back is usually, it starts off in like the 20s, I think. They use, all their spells cost mana, but the way you do it, you can set it up so that your really damaging abilities can use a large chunk of your mana at one go. So say you have, for simplicity's sake, say you have 400 mana and you have an ability that costs 90 and does a lot of damage. So you can cast like 4 or 5 of those, and then you can, say you're generating 25 mana per second, you can use, say, an ability that costs 3 mana, and you can cast it like twice a second, so that's going to drop your total regeneration rate down to about 19 a second as opposed to 25. So you can adjust like your mana output. It's kind of a gauge. Everybody's resource is basically a limiting factor, a throttle on how much damage output you can do in an X amount of time. So for the Witch Doctor, I think the Witch Doctor has the absolute most control over their resource because of how mana costs work on different spells. You can make your basic mana spells be kind of really expensive. Rain of Toads, I believe, is the most expensive, and it can easily outpace your mana regeneration, so you can just spam that if you'd like, if you don't want to deal with spamming using a couple of really strong attacks, and then you're basically relegated to using a bunch of really weak attacks for a while. So it's a little more customizable, I would think. Now, the last class would be the Wizard. Arcane Power is kind of a new... I guess it's not really that much of a new concept. It's actually very much like an energy mechanic, like rogues in World of Warcraft and stuff like that, where it's really fast at coming back, and you can throw out huge chunks of damage in a short period of time, depending on your needs. So you start off with 100 Arcane Power. I think the base regeneration rate is 10 Arcane Power per second back. So over 10 seconds, you're going to get all of your Arcane Power back. So Wizards are good at just dumping a lot of damage out in a short time frame, or they can also throttle it back a little bit to do more consistent damage, but for less. But because the resource comes back so fast, it allows you to use some of your really powerful abilities rather constantly. And they also have, instead of having a resource builder, which you can actually make it into a builder, they have spells called cantrips, I believe, where they're basic abilities that cost no mana, no arcane power, not mana. and you use passives to actually make them generate arcane power when you use them later on, if you'd like. So you can like throw out a meteor, I believe is 60 arcane power base, so you can't even cast 2 off the bat. It might even be 65. So you throw out 1 and then you're kind of out of arcane power for that spell, so you're going to need to use your cantrips. Say use electrocute, which is kind of like a weak chain lightning. Every target you hit can generate 4, and you can hit up to like 8 targets, I think, with a certain rune. So you can throw out a meteor, throw out an electrocute or 2, drop another meteor, throw out a few more electrocutes, drop out a meteor. So there's a lot of customization in how you can attack with the wizard. We're going to go in with a class or 2, and I'm going to show you some of the basic abilities in game, and we'll go from there. Alright, so once you're in game, you go through, kill a few guys, you're going to go through one early event, and you're going to get into town like this. That's how far I am in the game. Don't mind that stuff. This is what your abilities are going to look like when you start the game off. You're gonna come up with one basic attack in your primary, and that's it. At level 2, level 4, level 9, level 14, and level 19, you're gonna unlock your next ability slot. Everybody's gonna have a primary ability, a secondary ability, and a defensive ability, which are linked to your left click, your right click, your button 1, button 2, button 3, and button 4. That's how they're basically set up. These last 3 abilities are going to be unique depending on your class. For the Barbarian, it's Might, Tactics, and Rage. This is basically your ultimate ability. Everyone has 3, I'm pretty sure. Some might be different, but I'm pretty sure everyone's 3. Might, they're going to have, depending on your class, they're going to have something here. This is usually like your heavy hitter of some kind. This contains Meteor for wizards and other such things, and some of the hard-hitting abilities for the Barbarian. These are usually going to be some kind of utility, like shields and long-term buffs, like shouts and mantras for monks, cold shield and lightning shield for wizards and stuff like that. Down here you see the passives at 10, 20, and 30. You unlock passives. I can't access them just yet. I'll show you some later. But you're basically going to have 3 options. The passives let you customize your character, and they usually synergize with different kind of active abilities. So usually when you come in here, you'll do your first quest, which is just kill some zombies and spawn. Smash them all dead. This will level you directly to 2. Every time you level, you get a cool little thingy that kills everybody near you. It'll max out your health, and if you're not Fury, it'll max out your resources. When you come out here, you now, level 2, you've unlocked your secondary ability. You can go, you only have one option, Hammer the Ancients. And there you go. I spent all my resource. Now my Furies is 0 out of 100. Requires 20. Down here it shows you 200% weapon damage. All abilities use a percentage based off of your weapon, so even wizards and casters of different sorts, witch doctors, etc. need better weapons because all their spells scale off of those weapons, which is a good balancing change in my opinion. So let's look at something more advanced. Here we go. My Barbarian's now magically level 60, and we have more options here. Your primary ability, you'll have 3 or 4 primary attacks. These are always spammable. You can always use these, except for the Witch Doctor. They actually have mana costs, so you can actually run out of the ability to cast Witch Doctor primaries. But depending on your class, you'll have these. Every ability has 5 runes associated with it. They unlock at certain levels. They're not going to show me here because I have them all unlocked, but it'll actually have a red number above it that tells you what level it'll unlock at. And once you've unlocked the ability, you can mouse over the rune even if it's not unlocked, and you can see what it'll do. This allows you to customize your character considerably. With wizards and witch doctors and stuff like that, it'll actually change the graphic a lot. And even the functionality. Like the wizard starts, their first secondary power is Ray of Frost, which you can actually turn into like a point blank attack, which puts a bubble of frost around you as opposed to a beam that shoots. So it completely changes the functionality of the spell. Similar to the Hydra, they can actually change from fire into arcane, into poison, into frost or lightning. So you can just totally change the element and how the spell actually functions. As for which one you want, it depends on what you're going for a build on. This build right here is designed around Hammer the Ancients. These are... Hammer the Ancients doesn't have the greatest runes a lot of the time, I think. Thunderstrike's good for certain things. Birthright I use for farming. As for elective mode. Okay, here's how elective mode works. Primary, secondary, tactics. This also is tactics, but it's supposed to be might. These arrows right here will allow you to change which category you have in that button. Normally, you cannot, without elective mode, you're not allowed to use Warcry and Battle Rage in the same build. You can't do it. You can only use one tactics. This would have to be might here. So this slot would have to be one of these four. So slot 2 would have to be one of these four and nothing else. So you're rather limited in your options. In fact, this couldn't even be tactics. This would have to be defensive. And this would have had to have been tactics. And that was defensive. And this would have been rage, which I do keep. But if you want to customize your hotkeys, because I use certain buttons for certain hotkeys myself, in order to customize which hotkey goes to which button, you have to enable elective mode or actually fiddle around with your binding on your hotkeys itself. So that's an important thing to do, is make sure you turn on elective mode so you can actually use the abilities you want where you want them. As for passives, everyone I believe has about that many passives. So, excuse me, about 16 passives. Everyone, some people have a little more, some people have a little less, I believe. But these allow you to customize a lot of how your character functions. My character is built around crit. So Ruthless gives me 5% crit and 50% crit damage. The base crit damage is 50, so this basically doubles it. Weapon Master, because I'm using axes, gives me 10% more crit chance as well, giving me a total of 15 from passives. There's a lot of things like defensive passives and stuff like that. So that's most of the basics about skills, using the Barbarian as a base. Another note is that you're going to have one button for your potions. You can go and drag a potion from your inventory on there to change it as you get new and better potions. I think the default it's bound to is Q. I use E because I use Q for different powers. You're also going to have the town portal built in once you've gotten far enough into the game to get the quest. I don't remember what the default key is, but I use B. And this is your health. If you run out, you die. These are going to be all your basic stats. Everyone's going to have a primary stat. Strength is only for barbarians. It tells you right up there. Dexterity is for demon hunters and monks. Intelligence is for witch doctors and wizards. Vitality is for everybody and just gives you more health. Armor is a flat damage reduction for everything in the game. And damage is going to be an approximation of how much damage you do per second based on your weapons, your attributes, your attack speed, your critical hit chance, passive skills, dual wielding, attack speed increase, which is 15%. Details is going to give you a lot more information. This gives you your offensive information here. They don't have attack speed in the game listed. They only have attacks per second. Like if you look at this weapon, 1.3 attacks per second. There's no attack speed. Diablo 2 used slow, fast, very fast, and stuff like that. This is more informative and less abstract. And defense will show you all of your defensive skills. Resist all is an important stat in this game. Gives you resistance to everything. As you can see, it reduces damage by level 16 enemies by X%. I have a shout that makes it even better. Same thing with my armor. Crowd control reduction is a good one. There's a lot of crowd control on monster attributes. Your thorns is a flat damage in this game, so certain items will have, I have one somewhere. Melee attackers take 976 damage per hit. So as opposed to reflecting percent damage, which would kind of make you overpowered at times in Inferno because things hit so dang hard. They just went with a flat damage. Life, there's a lot of different life attributes. There's life percent bonuses now. There's life per second on items, 93 life per second, for instance, on my chest. There's life steal, which apparently in Inferno is pretty garbage at the moment, even though I really want to do a build centered around life steal and do a lot of damage. Life per kill, which is kind of a garbage stat, though you do kill enough stuff that it can actually work if you go for it, I suppose, but it really isn't very desirable. Life per hit, which is pretty much the most desirable life stat because it's not retardedly scaled back in Inferno like life steal is. Like if you have 12% life steal, which is the max as a barbarian, you can do 3% on each weapon, 3% on your belt, and 3% passive. That's the most you can ever get, and 12% is scaled down in Inferno to like 1.5 or 2% basically off of your damage depending on the skills. So a life per hit is generally better. Also health globes, mechanic I have not explained yet because I haven't really done any fighting, but basically whenever you kill an enemy there's a chance it'll drop a health globe that heals you. I think the base is 25% of your overall health. I could be completely wrong, I'm not 100% sure actually. So just know that as you kill weak enemies you can get heals, and as you kill strong packs of enemies you can get you get more health globes. They drop health globes before they die at a certain percentage of their hit points, so that you can actually get some heals while you're fighting something strong. Another new attribute to the game is bonus gold globe radius for pickup. You start with a fairly low where you basically have to walk right over gold, which you don't have to actually click on in this game, it automatically picks it up. This will actually extend the radius so you don't have to walk as close to pick stuff up. This is actually rather important for the health globes at times during certain enemy fights, so that you don't have to run through bad stuff to get close enough to pick it up if you need an emergency heal. Each class will have a resource breakdown for their resources. So for not melee classes, basically all the ranged classes, it'll actually tell you how much of your resource you're going to get per second. If there's any resource leech, I think there's some resource leech abilities in the game, it'll tell you, it'll all be listed right there for you. The barbarian only gets maximum fury, so it's a rather short list there. Adventure stats, this is important to know if you're grouping with friends. Gold find and magic find, I'm 100% sure magic find splits, I'm not 100% sure if gold find splits. But say you have 100% gold find and you join a group, there's 4 of you, your magic find is going to drop to 25% and everyone else is going to get 25%. This is due to the fact that the game has unique magic drops for every single person in the game. So when you kill an enemy monster, you're going to see your loot drop and everyone else is going to see their loot drop, and you're not going to be fighting over anything. This keeps people who have no damage and 3000% magic find from coming in and just sitting there doing nothing and getting all the best drops while everyone else does all the work. So it was a last minute change really before the game came out, and it's a really good idea that they did that. Otherwise you'd have a lot of griefers that would just come in and make everything harder and just get all the best stuff. There's also bonus experience. As you level, it's not as important at 60 obviously because you're not getting experience, but this can help you level up really fast comparatively if you have a lot of experience gear. That's like the basics on the classes and the resources and the stats in the game. There's a lot of different stats that you haven't seen in other games before. Here's a unique ring and such. So I'm gonna go into some more detailed things in different videos, but that's a basic overview of the basics about the classes and the stats. So I hope this helped you guys out, and if you need more detailed information, look for the future videos containing the information that you need. Thank you very much for watching. See you next time.